Man, I gotta
It's
figure out how to
just
do a
it's
camera, man.
funny how bad portable cameras are for things like using them as webcams.
It, of all the things, like this would have been like the best option. Like having something like the DJI just to plug it in straight to my Mac
Yeah.
would have been the ideal thing. And again, perfect setup, lighting, and all of that. And I'll say
Mm-hmm.
this in the preview before we got into the actual show, the camera
Yeah.
looked decent on the Mac. Like it was like okay. And then the moment I got into this, I'm like, no, I am super pixelated. Like really, really
Yeah.
sorry.
Excuse me.
I am so sorry.
Yeah,
Hopefully
I
the
almost
audio is
just
better.
no. I mean, you're sounding like you just woke up, but you're sounding
Yeah, yeah.
fine, so
I
that's
did just
good.
wake up.
We've got
Uh,
TK on location here. The other thing I guess we could have pointed to was maybe bring a Pixel, because then you could use your Pixel as a webcam, right?
that
I mean,
is
I'm
true.
sure Apple would let you use an Android phone as a webcam. Certainly, they
I
wouldn't mess that up.
I don't know, man. I feel like there's like some hard line that they don't cross, and like Pixel webcam is that one line. But
Right. Well,
we'll have to
just
figure that
Pixel
out.
file transfers or Android
No,
file transfers are that line in the sand.
I think they literally just had some kind of a they vomited inside of their mouth and they're just like this is not happening. Yeah,
Well,
no.
hey everybody, welcome to a tech podcast, and we're gonna try and keep this one pretty lean because TK's out on location, but you've got a flight to catch, so
I
we
gotta
can't
yeah, I
let
gotta
this show
start
go too long.
heading. I gotta start heading back, and it's 5 a.m. right now in Milan, and I have to catch a bus
Ooh,
to the airport, and my flight is like around 9 o'clock, so it's not exactly like it's yeah it's
you guys like how TK just casually like, oh, it's 5 o'clock in Milan. I'm just jet setting with all my Milan friends now.
that's true. I am hanging out with my Milan friends right now.
So,
Yeah, I mean it's
we've
been
got to
busy.
focus. We've got to stay on target. We've got to stay
Yes,
on track,
this is the
stay on
challenge.
topic.
Should
I'm
be
already
accepted.
rambling, talking about how we need to stay
No,
focused and stay on
yeah,
track.
yeah.
It's great.
It,
It's what we
it's
do.
it, it's Thursday. Happy Thursday, everybody.
Happy Thursday. Well,
Happy
is
Thursday.
is it is it Friday for you?
Oh crap! Yeah, you're right. It is Friday. Okay, so no. Okay, it is Friday morning for me, Thursday evening for you,
Sure.
which is
I'm so
yeah,
happy it's Thursday. We got a great crew in here. I'm seeing Darren and Sam, Ron
yeah, yeah,
Guido,
yeah.
Clay, Barry Johnson, Greg. What's up,
Greg's in
Greg? How
there.
you doing, sir? Hassam, John Gal, Farhan. What I would like to do,
Okay.
I think our week has been dominated by three major products.
Yes.
You have been talking up and putting out videos, and you're out on location playing with some phones, and then I've got a
Hmm.
laptop. So just to make sure that we can cover the two phones, I would like to start with your pair of phones, and then I can wrap us up with
Okay.
whatever time we have left chatting Surface laptop. I think we can kind of lead
I,
it that way.
and so yeah, I mean, I'll probably say that most of my stuff that's covered this week, at least both phones, are very much AI focused. There's a lot of
Hmm.
AI
Oh, my
for
laptop is also
this a
like the
yeah.
theme of the week is
Is
things that are
AI
AI, but maybe the AI
absolutely?
is only a part of the conversation and it's not as
It,
exciting as these manufacturers are trying to make it sound.
it is absolutely, but no, it also is very different the way, at least on the devices that we're looking at are there's AI focus, but obviously there's new hardware that we're talking about, new devices being
Yeah.
released. Um, Early in the week, I pushed out a video for the Reno 12 Pro. This is a brand new device from Oppo, but it's a device that they're dubbing an AI phone because it was based on a meeting that we had with them a few weeks ago, where they focused on giving us the roadmap of all their devices, what they wanted to do. It's a big shift in the company's perspective of devices because they want to make every device an AI phone. And again, AI being it is a little bit of a buzzword, I'll say that, but you're going to hear it quite a bit. And
Mm-hmm.
it's we're seeing obviously, Apple team also doing their own conversation of this, but the implementation, I'll say, it brought the Reno line closer to what I used to think of the yeah. So the one that we're looking at right here is that that beautiful purple. It reminds me so much of that OnePlus Thunder Purple. Um,
Yeah. The
uh, it,
gradient purple is
yeah,
really cool.
and this one actually looks really good. And so Oppo's Reno 12 Pro is their first device which heavier focus on AI. and I had the opportunity to get a chance to talk to them, and then finally had to get a chance to play with their device. And they brought a lot of things that we usually had on Pixel devices into Reno devices, and they're built in on what Oppo is doing in there. So we're talking about like AI summarizing, websites, AI talk, reading back things to you, AI writing assistants and stuff that, again, we've used before, like, Grammarly and things like that. So it was implemented very nicely, and it was actually implemented on a 7300, a Dimensity 7300 chip, which is different, as you can imagine. It's not a very, I'll say, AI forward experience, but it was done very nicely. Cameras are very good overall.
And before you kind of leave just that sort of generalized, because again, I feel like one of the things that's letting us down in the AI conversation, similarly when it comes to laptops and tablets and everything else that's stressing an NPU right now, what kind of indication that they give that, like, they've got a strategy for on-device AI and a strategy for cloud AI? Because, like, I think a lot of people get frustrated when AI features are touted but then don't come to lower performance or slightly older premium phones, because you could do cloud AI. Like, iPhone owners are complaining. If you have an iPhone 15, you're not getting Apple Intelligence. Why couldn't you do some of this as a slower cloud service so we wouldn't be completely left out? What was Oppo's kind of tact in trying to delineate? Because, like, when they say, like, hey, look at this camera, it's got a portrait mode, a new AI enhanced portrait mode, that's not surprising, because we've had Oppo really leaning into AI subject detection. So you take a photo without LiDAR, without any depth information, and then you long press on the subject in your photo gallery, and it finds the edges of that subject, and then you can kind of cut them out of that image. To me, that's not a huge step to then take that and then just blur the background, because you've already done the AI, the machine learning subject detection.
Exactly. You already separated the subject. And their biggest focus on, from what they told us in person and what we're seeing, is their goal is to make every phone an AI phone. And we know, like you said, hardware-wise, there's certain requirements and certain limitations that you have based on the class of CPU, the storage size, the RAM size available, all of the things, NPU availability, and all of those in their devices. And the Reno is by far not the most powerful processor, and it does not have all of that requirement to meet it. So their approach to most of their devices is, if the hardware can handle on device, they're going to try to have more on device. Like the Find series. The Find series, you're able to download their language models, or basically the models that they're building for AI object recognition, or even AI eraser on device. You can run it offline, and it does that for me on my Find X Ultra. The Reno, on the other hand, still relies heavily on cloud-based. It's more feature focused than some of their devices when it comes to, like, it had more AI features than the Find X7 Ultra, because A, global market, B, obviously it's the first of its kind. They're trying to give you the best foot forward type of thing. But if the device can't handle it, they are trying to shift more towards online services. And I think that's what they represented with the Reno. They gave us what they could. I think there's a couple of options in there out of the ones that they shared with us that were on device, but the rest were all summarized, like, the recording summary that was also, I think, online. All of those you had to download, and then like, they had an algorithm model that you had to install for the modules to run, but they still needed internet connectivity. Like, the entire language model wasn't installed. So it's a shift. It's a shift from what and I voiced my opinion when we were with them in London, and I'm like, the more you rely on cloud services in areas where internet connectivity is not stable, but internet is maybe not 5G all the time. Like, again, I'm traveling right now, and we're in Europe, and you would expect, internet to be super fast and super great. Well, eSIMs in general, whenever you're traveling, you're connected to LTE. I have been having miserable internet connections since I've been here. This is like one of the weird experiences. So trying to run these examples takes longer, and it changes the experience. And sometimes it doesn't work because if it doesn't connect to the server correctly. So I think ideally we'd love to have more on device. We would love our devices to be able to handle more. But as the price of the device goes down and it's becoming more affordable, I think we're going to see more companies rely on online-based services, and we need to rely on internet connectivity. So they're shifting the onus on the connectivity for us to be able to process things, kind of like working with ChatGPT, or even using CoPilot that uses ChatGPT on their devices. It's a challenge. It sucks, but it's a start, or at least where we are now, till the language models kind of either become like micro sized, or they start having smaller models that are initially to go straight to device, not just be server based. But I mean, even during the Realme presentation, we saw Google go on stage and showcase their benefits and their services, and they explained that you want better services, you you need to pay for the premium membership. So we're starting to see these things. Yeah, it is going to turn into a money situation.
I'm still like, I'm very bearish. I don't feel cloud AI really has a huge consumer application, like a huge consumer need. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of this kind of back and forth to settle on some features that just generally improve the phone in kind of iterative ways. Like, think of how we've seen keyboards on our smartphones improve. And I feel like that's kind of the mundane stuff, but that really does have an impact on someone's quality of life. And when you tell me like, oh, now we can do speech to text transcription. Okay, cool. And you can do that on device. Well, if you let it scan for just a bit and there's a little MPU in there, I don't mind if it takes an extra second or a minute or it takes a bit longer, but I don't want all that data going up to the cloud, then getting manipulated, summarized, and brought back down if I can just do it on device. I don't want to have to pay for that cloud link to achieve that when I don't mind you taking a little bit longer just to do that with the compute power that I already have locally. Like, I'm already pissy when it comes to things like, here's a video editing app and you have to pay a subscription if you would like to render in 4K. And it's like, that's not a subscription service. I'm using my compute power. That's on my device already. You're not doing anything.
My hardware.
Exactly.
All you're doing is that you're enabling the codec to switch from one to the other, and my system is exactly. And
that's not my jam. I'm not into that.
But
I'm going through the Reno 12 website, and it is, oh man, it's all AI.
It is a grounds up shift. And this week I got the opportunity to see both Oppo's and Realme's approach to this, and they're both very much putting an AI foot forward type of a situation. There are obviously some similarities between the two. There's a little bit, and then there's differences, but yeah, it's nice that I'll say I was pleasantly surprised to see how well the features that they had worked, and how well and everything was baked. I mean, the only thing that wasn't available yet was best face, which is again similar to what Google's version of it, that where there's multiple exposures taken, and then the system and the AI will try to give you the best one that they think looks better, like where everybody's looking at the camera and everybody's smiling or whatever. But the goal of obviously what they're trying to do is, right now at least, they're trying to bring in, and I do want to mention is that Oppo is working with Google. This is not entirely home baked. So Gemini Nano to a certain point is going to be providing some support into what Oppo's doing. That's the path that they decided to go with, is on Google's side as opposed to chat.
See, and I think that also just not to take up too much of our podcast here. That's another thing that's going to have to be more clearly defined. Gemini Nano is like a Google product and a platform and a service, and also the framework for other people to use services from their software and AI teams. And it's so nebulous. I really do feel like these companies are putting themselves into a potentially... Oh, jeez. Yeah, Google just answered something on
Here's some pictures
that's
right away. No, exactly.
terrible. But no, I think these companies are potentially putting themselves into an actionable position because these boundaries are not clearly defined. So
right now,
you can tell me it's Google Gemini, but is it a Oppo
version
service, an Oppo service that is being used on a Gemini platform? Where does that data go? I'm sure the GDPR is going to be very interested in understanding where information is stored and processed.
Part of the features that are not yet EU certified are not actually available on the device yet. So an example would be AI Eraser if you are an EU user currently in the device. So the announcement was done on the device about the device on, I think, was it Monday Tuesday, and the actual availability depending on the market that you're in. Okay, that was weird. Look at it hasn't been exactly set, but as far as the features themselves, they're still going through certifications, and yeah, Oppo has to figure out how to make the I guess the current certifications and apply, comply with rulings and security requirements for EU,
Hmm.
which are higher than what we usually get in the US, which is in a
A
good
lot
way.
higher
It
than what
helps,
we
but
have
it's yeah,
here.
it is much higher. And it's the same thing for the Realme device. Both the AI eraser, which again seems to be the most advanced algorithmic program that they're using here, as far as basically an
Hmm.
AI feature, is not available, and the rest of the features on the Reno were available at launch. So there's again, you notice there are some things that they're holding back, but they're not sharing obviously yet. They'll explain what platform, but not exactly where that line is drawn, who's doing where, what, and where. And I hope that we would get more visibility into that as time goes on. And we see this on more devices. The Reno is not exactly the most powerful, but it is capable, and the 7300 is good enough to handle the general,
Yeah.
multitasking, running
I
things
mean,
in the
it's
background, and
yeah. I
and
mean, like
all
the 7 series chips have been generally fine.
that. Mhm.
Again, it's like I kind of feel like that's not really the concern. I just feel
Mhm.
like these companies. I think it would serve these companies well in the long term.
Yeah.
It's probably a bunch of marketing people and executives saying, "Let's just run with this so long as all of the investors really care about AI hype." And
Mhm.
it seems like just kind of rolling into an AI conversation instead of really kind of calculating what is the better long-term strategy for consumers and what kind of presents the products in a better light. So I mean, like, just from the hardware perspective, this looks like a good mainstream daily driver phone.
Yeah.
I feel like we are flush with really good options for very
There,
good
take
mainstream
out the
daily
AI,
driver
take out the
phones.
AI. Exactly. I know. If we take out the AI part of the conversation, this is a great running device that features all of the latest, features that Oppo has to offer for us. Um, to a certain point, there's a big also. I feel like there's a market, I don't know, pressure to do something AI because everybody's talking about it, and I think it's the biggest focus. Where if you're not in the conversation, you're lost, I guess. Um, and I feel like Oppo's approach to this is they're just going all in. You know what I mean? Like they're just literally going all in with this, and they're trying to make the experience on the device better. But they're also realizing that not all of the devices will give that same experience in that same way. So I don't think all the features that we see on the Reno will come, let's say, to an A series Oppo. We'll probably get a smaller subset of those features. As we go up the chain, we may see more features as it goes to the new Define series, since Oppo did make a commitment saying that the Find series is coming back to Europe. So more than likely next year's Find X 8 Ultra or Pro, whatever, could potentially be
Yeah.
launching with AI in Europe. So those are the approaches on there. But if we take that away, it's a really fun device to play with. An almost flat display. Also, I feel like this is the most well balanced experience between a flat display and a curved display, because it's a
Is
micro
this one
curve that
that has, does it have like the corner curve where it's the
it had it
three-dimensional
it's
curves
all, yeah,
or
it's all sides, both
yeah.
top and bottom and sides. So it's, if you don't have a screen protector on it, you have that nice little glide. Otherwise, you may feel
Hmm.
it a little bit, but for the most part, when you hold it sideways, it almost looks like it's flat. Like it's such a micro
Nice.
curve in there that is. I don't think they did it they were trying to basically appease both sides. They're like, it's too minimal, but it's there. You know what I mean? Like, but so you
Right.
kind of get it, but you don't really get it. So yeah. And then, great, like you saw that right there, a front-facing 50 megapixel camera, a very heavy focus into the experience with the cameras on this. And then, of course, an ultra wide that they don't mention here, but I think if I'm not mistaken, it's an 8 megapixel. So
Yeah, it seems to be
a
the way
shift.
that we're shifting to
It's a shift.
having the nicer sensor on the telephoto, and now
Yeah,
the
no,
ultra wides are getting a little cheap.
a little bit. And but I'll say this: the we're still getting 4K 30 on all the lenses, and I think that's the biggest benefit here. We get front-facing, rear-facing cameras with in there, and then this device has an SD card out of the blue. I didn't see that one coming. Like,
That's nice.
yeah, but it was a surprise. Like when I saw it in the okay, I almost missed it as on device thing because I was putting in my SIM card,
Hmm.
because it's on the back side. It's on the SIM 2 section.
Oh, right,
And
yeah.
yeah, and so when I saw it in the spec sheet, I was like, wait a minute. And I was like, oh yeah, sure enough, you can either have two SIMs or one SIM and one SD. So
I mean,
Again,
it'd be nice to see that maybe start to trickle back in,
I
and
really, yeah,
I feel like, again, you can sell a phone on a collection of features, and
yeah,
there are some parts of this conversation where I know not many people are gonna care about not being able to swap the SSD in their MacBook
yeah.
until
They
they
start running
max
out.
out their MacBook, right? If you
Guilty.
point blank them, then they're gonna sort of, oh well, I mean that doesn't matter to me. It literally doesn't matter to me today, so it will never matter to me out in the future. And I feel like there is a not insignificant number of consumers that you could motivate by saying things like, hey, anytime you need to add more storage to your phone for photos and videos and music and stuff like that, there's this thing called a micro SD card. And
Oh
you
no,
can
no, yeah,
pop
yeah,
it in.
or even
All you
just
need to do is tell people, and I feel like it is such a practical
yeah.
option that would motivate some purchases right there, just to let people know about it.
It is something. Like I said, it was a surprise for me to find out. But if you, for me, if nothing else, just to back up your pictures off your device, so that you allow the internal storage to run at the fastest capable speed, so that you can, like, here's
Yeah,
the proverbial: don't fill up your main storage, put it on your backup or your secondary drive, just so
for
that it
sure.
doesn't get accessed all the time. No, I appreciated that function. Um, but again, I want to focus a lot. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit more where the CoPilot and the PC, because you got yours and I'm still not. I did not get my unit yet, due to two location things. A, I'm not in the country, and B, it's on the way. The Realme announced their version of what they feel like AI is going to be, and Realme made the exact same commitment. All of their new devices are going to be AI centric. And what I see the similarity, and I just wanted to kind of to comment on Farhan's comment in the chat. Yeah, the pricing between these two devices are very similar, but the experience that we're getting here is very different. Like Realme went with a GT series, so this GT is typically considered one of their fastest, most powerful devices that they launch every year, and they've been gone for a couple of years, so they're back now, and they're very focused on giving you a fast, sleek experience. Sorry, I'm charging mine because the battery died out of basically being out all day yesterday, walking around, taking pictures, and just enjoying the last few hours that I had on hand at in
In
Milan.
in Milan.
In Milan, my friend, yes.
I
Eating
don't know why
pizza
I'm
and
trying to do like a
gelato.
bad like French Milan. It's not the right that's
It's
wrong.
the
That's
yeah,
yeah.
we hit the other side of the floor. Um, but yeah, no, so the GT6 is priced, retail pricing is about $599, which is roughly the same price as what Oppo's selling their Reno 12 Pro for. So you kind of start looking like, well, where is it? Why are they the same? And all that. There's a different approach. Realme is different, and Realme did put out a super early bird sale too. So it's not selling for
Yeah.
$599, like $549 for their high end, and then they released a second phone, which was a new thing because I didn't even know, they didn't share that with us ahead of time, that there was the 6T, which is powered by the 7 Gen 3, and for all intents and purposes shares a lot of the DNA of the GT6 with the exception of the main sensor
Mm-hmm.
and the processor. So that was the thing. But it had the same charging speed, the same battery, the same display brightness. So a more affordable GT6 is a GT6T that was going around $399. Like that was crazy. Like the 7th Gen 3 is a powerful processor. It is a 7
Yeah.
series. It is a mid-range, but it's going to be 7, like 865 type of, freshness into your device, but it's just a 7 series label. And they didn't go with the 7S Gen 3. They went with the 7 Gen 3. So they went with the more
Yeah.
powerful version. And on the 8 side, they did go with the 8S Gen 3, which is somewhere around the 8 Gen 2, but it's still, again, a powerful processor, a flagship experience,
Yeah.
hands down. But
I
yeah,
really feel like we need to see Qualcomm start cleaning up their chip naming and distribution. It's
yeah,
gotten so complicated now
and with
that
the 8S series and more companies jumping onto the 8S, like we saw Honor put out the 8S Gen 3 on their Honor 200 Pro that was launched, like I think it was like a week or
hmm
so ago.
yeah.
And I am pretty sure we have not seen the last 8S Gen 3 being released. I think it's an appealing processor because it's a more affordable from an SoC part from a parts standpoint. It's
hmm
available, and it is basically going to still give you that, for the lack of a better word, because you're saying 8S Gen 3, you're still saying 8 Gen 3 with an S in the middle. and some people are going to not realize what it is and assume it's still an 8 Gen 3.
Right.
And I feel like that's the game that we're playing here. That's what Qualcomm is trying to do with the name. Like, we'll give you a better price, but it still kind of sounds like it's the same. And in reality, it's
Yeah.
more like it's an 8 Gen 2 plus, or like somewhere around the 8 Gen 2.
And I mean, it is a little bit more than just. So I kind of feel like when we went from the 865 to the 865 plus to the 870, there were refinements, but it really seemed like it was just an improvement in fab, getting yields up higher, the maturity of that node, all of that stuff, just kind of working to make those chips a little bit higher performance, but not radical re-architecture. And so
Yeah.
the 8S Gen 3 does seem like an 8 Gen 2 that just has some other little components and upgrades kind of stapled into it. I'm grossly oversimplifying, but
Oh,
it
no,
really
absolutely.
does feel like it could have been an 8 Gen 2 plus. Or I hate how they do this. It would have been an 8 plus Gen 2.
Yes.
Like the 8 plus Gen 1. Like their naming convention really doesn't work in how now they're sort of stratifying all of these different options and solutions. Because what is the difference between a sort of upper level mid-ranger phone and a lower level premium tier? You have such
tier.
significant overlap, right?
But that's the thing. They're playing on the knowledge or the naming convention, right? Because we've seen they've built the 8 okay, so they built the naming of the 8 series. When they rebranded their naming, they went with the 8 Gen 1, the 8 Gen 2, and the 8 Gen 3.
Sure.
So they made it a little bit more hard. It made it harder to kind of distinguish what, where, and who. Last year they didn't do a plus; they skipped it. Then we went with an 8 Gen 3, and a lot of companies started going with them. We saw all the flagships kind of come out with it. And typically in the middle of the year is where you start seeing the mid-rangers starting, like the 7 series, the 7 Gen 2, 7 Gen 1. And then they started releasing an S series in the 7 series before they did it in the 8 series. So we saw that with the 7S Gen 2, which, again, it's a powerful processor, but it's still more a budget-friendly mid-ranger, which mid-rangers are supposed to be budget-friendly to start with. So there is that whole conversation, but where we are right now, at least with Oppo and with Realme, is that they're focusing on more affordability on the device. They're trying to figure out ways to reduce the price, the hardware device cost, and still trying to inject the AI features to bring value and hope that the consumer finds the AI value enough to basically make their decision or their purchasing decision. The boxes have the words AI on them. So if you ever heard it and people just hear the buzzword, and I get it from a marketing standpoint, it makes perfect sense. You do want to put your best foot forward.
Sure.
We need to see how consumers are going to appreciate like I'll say the AI eraser. If there is a competition between AI eraser and Magic Eraser, like Google's product and Oppo's product, AI eraser is a better product for me. I like the way it does the work better. The detection, the actual process is much better. But again, I kind of like, it's a weird situation. Like during Realme's presentation, Google went on stage and talked about Magic Eraser.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but this is a Realme presentation. Realme should have been talking about AI eraser, that feature that was bringing in here. So it's a weird. It was a weird, part of an understanding
We've
the
got
limitations.
kind of like it feels a little like Oppo's take here is a bit like Samsung's older strategy, where they'd bring Google on to talk about this Google initiative and this one Android thing, but then they'd also show, hey, we've got our own Notes app and our own browser and our own calendar and duplicated services. So you've got two of everything on a Galaxy phone. For the AI generation, I kind of feel like Oppo is sort of taking the lead on, sure, I mean, Google and Gemini and all that stuff too, and Magic Eraser, great. And we've got duplicate features of all those things for our phones too.
And not only that, though, there is also, now we're starting to see more Google Photos integration into the standard what's it called, gallery app from companies.
Xiaomi I'm still getting nag screens on my OnePlus.
So
we don't have a sync with your Google Photos account. And you're like, I don't want one.
So they
plug it into OneDrive. I would love for you to back up to my OneDrive.
And I think this is the biggest thing. There's more of a thank you for allowing me to back it up directly there, so we don't have to do like either Oppo Cloud or whatever. But the experience is very much they're trying to get integrated into everything. But I like the fact that Oppo is putting their best foot forward. the AI eraser that we've seen before on the Find X7 Ultra series is the one that came over to the Realme device. That's what they're calling Gen 1. Gen 2 went to the Reno, and that one has a couple of extra
Okay.
features, but both are very functional. So yeah, it's. I'll say that, okay, so because I don't want to get it too long, obviously we're at the 30-minute mark. I've never been this more critical of time, but if we have to
I'm
categorize
watching the
both.
clock for you. Don't worry about it. You don't got to sum it all up. If like make your
No.
point, you're
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
You're comfy. Everyone's
Both
here for
great
you, TK.
phones.
We're all here
Both
for
great
you.
phones. Yeah, no, and I think it's more. It depends on what you look for and what you appreciate, or what you're looking for functionality. If you want horsepower and performance and gaming and all of that, I think the GT6 is your can, because it's just going to give you everything. The display is beautiful and it has just great features, and it's super bright. They brought in the Pro XDR functions, the high touch sensitivity, better game supports out of the box. So really nice. And I feel like the Reno is definitely a stylish, more fashion forward and AI forward foot for what Oppo wants to do for us. So they both provide us an interesting experience, priced somewhat relatively in the same ballpark, but I feel like you'll get a more of a bang of a buck, kind of like a flagship killer experience with the Realme, because that's what they're trying to do. And we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping that we'll see more features come to Realme devices, and maybe backwards compatibility. If it's a online service, I don't know what the limitation is of going back to, let's say, like last year's Reno, or last year's, well, there was no last
Yeah.
year's GT6, but GT5, but you know what I mean? Like, why not cover more devices with Android 15? Like, if they're going to be compatible
Yeah.
with Android 15,
Well,
bake
and
in
again,
some of those
that
Androids.
is gonna. They have to know
Hmm.
that that's going to be a complaint from people who bought a phone less than a year ago, and they're going to get left out of this hype train of
Hmm.
new features. I really think a lot of the stuff that we see companies kind of playing with and experimenting with, I don't see very many people finding that killer app. I
Yeah.
think a lot of folks are going to play with something maybe once, get kind of a garbage result from it. Excuse me, sorry. Get kind of a garbage result from it, and then they'll probably never touch it ever again. I did the I don't want to, we can talk about this more in the Microsoft thing, but like, all of the new CoPilot tools for like content generation, like I'm never going
Yeah.
to use this. I'm never
Well, no.
like put in a photo and do something
Yeah.
wacky to it. It's completely unpredictable. So I'm wasting my time hoping
Yeah.
it might do something that I think is neat enough for me to try using it somewhere, and
That. Yeah.
it's maddening. It's like there's so much engineering, development, server side processing, the data centers that are cooking the planet right now. Also, that I can make a picture of a bird look like a Muppet, and it doesn't do it well.
It is very much. I feel like it's still a learning experience. So they're hoping to learn from everybody's querying into the system and building it.
Yeah,
We saw a lot of the companies trying to leverage that, right? I mean, Adobe tried to do that, Meta's trying to do that. It's a very
I'm just saying
it's a
though is
learning
that for a
stage.
lot
Yeah.
of these for a lot of these AI tools though, they're not going to get a lot of querying, right?
Most of them, the legit thing that I'll probably say overall, the biggest thing, people made the claim saying, in their initial release of AI Magic Eraser on the Find X7 Ultra, in at least their markets, they noticed that that people were using it. And again, I can't verify the data, but their claim was that at least they were used, 10 to 15 times a day by the users that had access to it, which means it was the Find X series and people that are using their devices to take high quality images, and they're trying to clean it up the background. And I feel like, I'll be honest with you, AI Eraser, of all of the functional AI things that we've seen, like Magic Eraser, AI Eraser, whatever variant of it that we look at, even uh, what's it called, Samsung's version of it, the AI functional options there. Those may end up getting the most usage because we do use our devices a lot more like cameras now than it is that we used to in the past, and we typically
Yeah, for
are
sure.
seeing more people in the background, and we want to clean up things. So yes, and I think with that, Oppo and Realme they both have right now, because OnePlus hasn't announced anything. I'm not trying to exclude OnePlus from the conversation. It's just right now, subjects. So, the main thing that we've seen from them was you're able to tap on the subject and isolate and remove a subject from an image. That
But they
AI
did
can
add
do.
the eraser though, so that was added to the OnePlus Gallery as
Yep.
an on-device eraser. And
But
then
it's yeah,
what was there's something else. I'm missing something else that they just announced too. Anyway, not important.
Their
But all I'm
roadmap
just saying
is
is
not
I
a,
think
yeah.
it is very rude of you to dismiss the OnePlus 12 in white as OnePlus not doing anything.
I
So you're
I
obviously a OnePlus hater, anti-shell, and
yeah,
I think it's a bad
gonna
look,
get
TK. I think
I'm
you
gonna
could
get
be
cooked
better.
in the they're all gonna get they're all gonna come
No,
for
but
me
I
in the
mean, like
comments.
again, it's funny to me because like OnePlus has a very specific conversation about performance and price,
Hmm.
and like they're trying to target an S24 Plus, but at the price of like an iPhone 15. I really think they've kind of honed in on what their flavor of North American conversation is. And I'm
Yeah.
sure next year they're probably going to go deep on AI pitching and presenting also. I just kind of feel like as as a consumer fad, I think it's kind of peaked. I think the people who were interested in playing, like I've got idle time and I'm not just scanning through TikTok or Instagram, I'm going to take a photo of my daughter and just run through prompts and see what wacky things happen. That's such a limited entertainment experience that you're not going to get tons and tons and like you're discussing like Samsung. You're right. Samsung will get a lot more image data just because of the vast number of Samsung devices and the
Mhm.
very very basic like eraser tools. They'll
Yeah.
learn a lot from that consumer behavior. Oppo has this huge market. I don't think they're going to get a ton of applicable training AI modeling information
It,
from their users. I think you do that once, like, hey, let me play around with this and do some goofy, wacky photos, and then I'm kind of done. I think the entertainment, the novelty of that wears off really, really
it
fast.
is
And
very,
then we just
yeah.
have to wait for investors to see that, like, this AI thing isn't really a business model. No one has been able to point me to with this humongous investment of infrastructure, this is how we generate a significant amount more revenue.
And I think that's where
That has not been shown.
it hasn't, and I think it's we're still at the phase. I feel like we're still at the phase of the um I think they kind of say I need to find a better analogy, but essentially it's that initial honeymoon phase where you're getting a lot of different things, you're sampling a lot of different things, but you're not necessarily sure what exactly which one you want. And I think the companies are trying to see where the appeal is going to go, where the general consensus is going to be these are functional, these are valued, these are getting used features, and then there's the ones that people ignore that we may just see fizz away, and then they'll go into the whole charging. And Oppo didn't specifically say that they weren't going to have any subscription based, but I'll say that one of their tools on the Reno 12 Pro, which is the AI Studio, although it's an app that's installed and it's free, it does require tokens or credits. In the actual app, they gave you 5,000 to be able to do as many as you want, and they only take about what, like, five every time you want to do something. But my
See,
question would
that's
be, what
another
happens
thing. It's
when you run out of
stupid.
that?
It's like
Yeah,
game
like
console currency. It's
why
like, well,
do we
this
have
takes
to?
1,000 Microsoft bucks, but you can only buy Microsoft bucks in quantities of 768. And you're
It
like, so then I mean, I'm always gonna have remainder Microsoft bucks.
exactly.
Tokens, just put like a dollar amount on it. Every time
And
you use this, it's 3 cents. Like
it's
I'm
something
so
in that sense.
frustrated
Yeah, yeah, but
by this obtuse presentation of currency. It's like a bad gotcha game.
but again, so that's the thing. Like you could start seeing the lines being drawn. Google flat out went in with the whole, hey, you want Gemini Pro, you want to have better experience and everything, you need to pay for that one with better services. So we are seeing companies being, not necessarily in front of you, but they're trying to put it in there, that they're trying to monetize this. You're right. They're trying to figure out how to make
Hmm.
revenue, how to appease investors. And I think that's where you kind of see behind the curtain a little bit. So it's still early, and we need a better implementation. I don't know if Apple's implementation of how they're wanting to do AI and bring in and integrating it entirely into everything about the system, but again, and still saying, privacy and so on, but still using OpenAI, but then still
Yeah.
submitting your data. It gets very murky
It
in there.
and it's frustrating too because Apple is also muddying the waters. They're making this
Mhm.
murkier because a lot of what Apple Intelligence is really just stuff that we've had on Android with language learning models and machine learning I don't know, since what, the Mate 9?
I, I mean,
It's not
literally this was the
it's
year Apple.
not new stuff.
Yeah,
It's just, oh, well, we care about privacy, so let's impress you that when you do this, it stays on your device. And you're like, yes, we've had that. We've had subject and scene detection that's just built into the camera and doesn't require a cloud connection. We've had speech to text. We've had better library management of the words that you type into your keyboard on device. Like it again, every company is trying to make it murkier.
hmm
And I really feel in the EU, it won't happen here in the United States because we have no regulatory arm that can really tackle a problem this big. It would be the FTC, I think, but they're just not a big enough commission, well funded enough to do this. But this purpose, it feels like it's deception purposely, that they're trying to make this as obtuse and as complicated and as vernacular heavy. So it feels like, oh, I mean, if you know, I mean, you really got to be into this stuff. If you know, you
yep.
know. If you
If
don't,
you
I
know, you
mean,
know.
it's
Yeah,
just
no,
you're going to get
exactly.
left behind. When really it's just like, no, that's just smarter text. Like, that's just more intelligent spell check
hmm
is what you're describing. It's actually not anything particularly intelligent
It's a lot
in
of,
our
yeah. I mean,
devices.
the line between automation and AI is very blurry as well. Like what is exactly automation? What is exactly just an AI function? But the
Well, and that's just it, is like automation was what we called that kind of machine learning.
mhm.
Now it's just a buzzword for the same kind of machine learning. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, no.
we used to just have these things and we used to just take it for granted that like, oh, well, like the keyboard on my phone should get a little bit better at predicting text. Well,
And
that's a function that we've had since the 80s.
since
Character
the it's
prediction?
mhm.
Yeah.
it is absolutely that focus in there, and I think that's what that is. They're just rebranding and focusing and just kind of like honing in the tool set. Maybe that's the better way to look at it.
So I just want to wrap up. I've got this on the screen right now for the
Oh,
Realme GT6. And again, just in how that this is like just a well presented sort of premium mid ranger or entry level premium. It's right on
yeah,
the border between the two categories that I keep in my brain. I'm actually more excited about something like 360-degree NFC, where
got
they've built the antennas for short radio bursts in NFC,
mhm.
so that you don't have to play the game of where is the NFC pad on the back of my phone.
Yeah.
Something like that, totally mundane, but that's something someone is going to use all the flipping time.
And they will
Every
notice
payment
the
they
moment they
make.
change. Yeah, if they change their phone, the moment
Oh,
they do, they're like, "Oh my God, this is
oh,
not
that's
working. What
great.
happened?" Yeah.
Look how easy that was. I don't have to sit there and rub my phone all over some weird credit card kiosk so that I can
hmm
try and find where its antenna is to line up with my antenna. Like, again, that is a European idea where we're so way behind in just having good cash registers here in the United
What?
States. And that to me is a
Yeah,
better upgrade for an upper mid-ranger phone than all of
exactly.
this talk about making your photos look funky because we have the AI.
It's the well, yeah, no, and one thing I'll mention the inclusion of a similar technology on OnePlus devices as well. So the 360 and NFC antenna, I think this started about last year or so with Oppo,
Hmm.
and OnePlus carried that over. Realme's carrying it over this year as well. It is very nice. The Realme the Reno 812 Pro had a better overall reception for me. Like I actually had a better experience with it on both Wi-Fi and on 5G. It was surprisingly like
Hmm.
it jumped from one network to the other better. But yeah,
Nice.
little things like that, little true life experiences. Now that mobile payments are a thing, everybody is shifting towards them. Like we're really more focused on using phones. My wife literally uses it all the time, which is nice. Doesn't have to worry about having to take out a credit card. Only few places don't use it. And although we lost Samsung's, Samsung Pays feature where you could use it on any
Hmm.
terminal, most of the terminals, at least in
Magstripe
our area,
was
yeah,
pretty awesome. Yeah.
it was in the, she noticed that right away, but more terminals now are supporting, tap to pay, at least, with Google
Sure.
Pay and so on. So
Also,
it's
I
nice.
just want to point this out. Then we can finally kind of leave the Realme. I got to scroll all the way back up through their website here. This is awesome podcast. I should have been doing that while you were making that last point, but I was actually listening to you instead of like trying to plan ahead. So look at these really awesome stats. So it's the 8S Gen 3. It's got a 1.6 million Antutu score, which means nothing. It's the same as the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 for the camera ISP, the display, modem, and your memory management. 20% faster CPU performance and 15% faster GPU performance. 20% faster and 15% faster than what, TK, did they say?
No.
Well, there's this tiny little annotation. I'm glad you asked. It is 20% faster CPU performance than the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1.
Yes.
And 15% faster GPU performance than the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which is basically an 8 Gen 2.
No, again, the naming.
It's an 8 Gen 2 with a different camera ISP and modem. And someone else was in there, and I'm sorry, I completely missed who said it. It might have been like Farhan. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it was Ghost Starscream. But it's basically like it's a Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 3, which is kind of a TSMC variant of an 8 Gen 1. I mean, it's like we keep circling the same kinds of experiences. And if you're not just going to push tech down into more inexpensive phones, then I need to see something else with a consideration. Like a Vivo V series brings that ring flash. That's not going to be for everybody, but I know who would really dig having a better flash for their photos, right? I need to see, there's so much more we could be doing with phones than just with new packaging and new buzzwords and new terms, here's more compute power than something else that you wouldn't have bought in this segment anyway. There was no 8 Gen 1 that sold in the upper mid-range.
Yeah.
But we had phones like the A65 and even the A88 that did really well. I mean, it's like we're not really advancing the smartphone computing landscape, and it seems like all we're trying to do is resell newer versions of the same things that we've kind of already had. And when something is on there that I think is kind of new and kind of cool, that would actually contribute to someone's daily life, it's like the bottom of their website, little bullet point. Sure, I guess we'll also tell them about the NFC radio.
Yeah, you have to kind of
actually
you have to kind of throw it in so that you know, like again, there's so many things that they're trying to put in front of you, and they're not prioritizing which ones are like really life changing or life enhancing. But it's in the hope that you're going to sit there and try every single feature on your own and hopefully get it. So it's a tough one. But the 8 Gen 3 or the 8S Gen 3 it is going to be a popular chip. I understand the appeal to why companies go with it. From a bottom line, it gives you the naming, the brand ID. It gives you better features.
I know all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it is still like, I don't think that's what anyone cares about.
No,
I have a hard time.
The consumer
thinking
doesn't.
The family that we talked about a little while back, and I think I mentioned them on my podcast either last week or the week before. They decided to go Pixels. Former iPhone family, too expensive. They're starting to get their kids' phones. They decided to go Pixels. There is no part of this page that would have interested them at all. You imagine an iPhone family flipping to an Android portfolio of phones going, oh, but I mean, I need this Antutu score. That's a big number. I'm so glad I'm on an Android now.
I did have somebody asking me about what was the Antutu score was on the Reno, and I don't really do.
I don't know, 7? Does that sound right? Was it 7? I'm pretty sure it was 7.
No, but I only show the Geekbench score more of a point of reference, not a saying that this is how it's going to perform. I don't really. It's not.
But I've gotten bitter to the point where I show the Geekbench score as the point of reference to show Geekbench scores don't mean anything because this phone got a bigger Geekbench score, but it loses in all of these other performance tests.
Well,
I've just gotten,
so I think it's
actively antagonistic.
I know, I'm with you, but I think it's a good. I think this would be a good segue to see how your experience has been going on with the Surface Pro.
Yeah,
and
in terms of AI,
Yeah, yeah. Of
In
all the
terms of the
AIs.
AI, I'm gonna go I'm gonna go to the wide view here for each of our cameras. I wanted to decorate my Surface laptop to show people
Hmm.
how excited I am for all this AI stuff. So I put a little HAL 9000 camera on
Okay.
here because it's it's AI.
It is AI.
Certainly, what could go wrong?
It is always watching. No, it's good.
I'm sorry, I can't do that, Dave. Open the pod babe doors, Hal. I'm sorry, I can't do that,
Do that,
Dave.
Dave.
So this laptop is rocking my socks, and
Okay.
this exact config I think almost no one should buy. That is my day 2 assessment of having spent $2,500 on the top spec, top config from Microsoft.
Yeah, yeah.
It is a fantastic machine. I
Hmm.
have a little room to grow because this is just a lump of system memory. So, as far as the operating system is concerned, if it's an NPU based task, that NPU sees it has 32 gigs of RAM to play with, which is delicious when we're talking about potentially in the future having to unpack larger
Yep.
models, machine learning models. Ditto, the slightly underpowered GPU on the X Elite
Hmm.
also sees that it has 32 gigabytes of RAM to play with whenever it might need it. So as I start playing with things like dumping 8K footage into my DaVinci Resolve timeline,
Hmm.
DaVinci Resolve is flaky AF right now on ARM. They
Hmm.
say it's a beta,
Boy, howdy.
and boy howdy is this thing almost an alpha.
Wow.
There are
Okay.
things like if I just move between, like my cut and edit and color correction pages, there's no guarantee that I'll be able to get back into the project and start the timeline back up again. It's like that kind of stability. We're still facing like the basics, just getting the basics covered. But when it is working, it's working phenomenally well, and the render speeds are surprisingly good, even though they're all technically just CPU renders. It
They are.
cannot
Yeah.
see the GPU to render off the GPU. But I do want to address, the Surface. It's a Surface. You've seen
Mm.
Surface laptops before. This isn't going to surprise anyone. It's a highly reflective screen. The face unlock is
Hold on.
astonishingly fast.
How do we do this? So then let me make your screen bigger because I
Make
feel
me
like you're.
big.
Oop, there we are, and I don't know. Wait. Nope. Oh,
All right,
let me
right
just
there.
take this one. Yeah, let me take
Yeah, let me
the.
just remove me.
Yeah, that. Well, I was gonna remove the other one. Here. There you go.
So, the face unlock astonishingly fast. The screen, it's LCD, but it's a really nice LCD. I'm
Hmm.
kind of fine as long as I do have my higher refresh rate, 120 hertz. So we're doing good right there. The touchpad is just a delightful tactile haptic feedback kind of experience.
Hmm.
So there's a lot to like in just how responsive it is, how it doesn't really have button clicks. So even when you click the pad, it doesn't really click because that sound drives me crazy and I hate it so much.
Hmm. Yeah.
Keyboards are great. The keyboard, key travel, all that stuff is great. I think Microsoft is pants on head stupid for the collection of ports that they give you because you basically get one USB-A and two USB-C, USB 4 ports. Not
Yeah.
enough. Not enough.
I feel like I no, that was the
It's
challenge that
another
I
thing.
was
The
looking at some of the
the
options. Yeah,
Asus is going to be awesome for you in being able to do things with
like
it.
just like an HDMI port, like an HDMI out port.
Yeah.
You need, yeah, especially when you're like I'm traveling or doing thing. I want to connect to a TV. I want to put in smart
Mm-hmm.
glasses or not glasses, but like like display glasses or stuff like that, like the X reels and
Yeah.
stuff. You need ports, and you're
You
going to
do.
see real quick how quickly you're limited on. And the Mac Life with all the dongles and everything. I think that's what they're trying to do. But yeah.
Oh, I'm going to have two different laptop hubs here on my desk when I finally shift over because I'm going to make this the experiment is can I use this? Can I use this to maybe start replacing my desktop?
Mhm.
But for all the snarkiness and for all the things that are still a little squishy about Windows on ARM right now, the initial day one setup has been phenomenal.
Okay.
We need to see some more firmware updates from Microsoft. We need to see some more OS updates on the Windows side. The Microsoft Store is abysmal. Like, it's never good, on Intel and AMD machines, but now it's like, again, it's basic stability on just getting your apps updated. You don't get previews right now if you're downloading the app. So like say there's an app to an update to the Photos app. I go into the store and on a regular Intel or AMD machine, I'll see it's downloading the update and then it completes the download and then it does the install and then you're good.
Yeah.
Here it's like the Microsoft Store locks up and then it says it's done after an indeterminate amount of time with no feedback or no disclosure, no meter on the download and the install. It's like, that's pretty basic. That is not a nice experience for a $2,500 laptop. But the power and the performance per watt are spot on. So I know we've got Lunar Lake from Intel coming in a couple months. I know we've got Strix Point coming from AMD in a couple weeks. And it's neat. I think it's neat that x86 is finally getting there after 3.5 generations of Apple M series chips. But now we have another competitor, and really, x86 and ARM won't get better if we don't have direct competitors fighting each other in this space. So Qualcomm's out now. And I love it when people are like, oh, but the AMD NPU is going to be so much more powerful. Like 10%? And you can't even show me what that means. Like there is no real world test that I can time or that I can measure for the improvement in neural processing to the tune of 10%. Do my terrible AI prompts get 10% faster? Well, cool. I have useless content that I won't be able to do anything with and that I'm never going to use for anything 10% faster.
No,
but we don't even know that that's what an NPU is going to do. Even with going from 45 tops to 50 tops, it's not a linear, oh, well, I've got 5 trillion more operations per second. It doesn't play out.
It needs to be, it needs to be truly practical. It needs to be referenced correctly, and it needs to be used in the right manner. So it's part of it is providing the power. Part of it is also developers being able to harness it. So it's beautiful. I'll say this. From a design standpoint, though, Microsoft is on point.
It's so clean.
It's very clean.
It's so clean.
It is. Oh my God. So yours is the 64 gigabytes of RAM configuration, which is the top model that Microsoft is putting out. Most other companies, if we're starting to talk about, obviously CoPilot plus PCs, because this has been literally Microsoft has been since Taipei. If you follow anything it's not Microsoft, Qualcomm is very happy, very much foot forward. Snapdragon insiders, everybody's happy about this collaboration, and wanting more people to try this type. So there's demos at Best Buys and so on. If you are in the area where there is, you can absolutely go down and check out some of these experiences. But you talked about DaVinci, and I think that it's a weird situation, but like for me, DaVinci is a very integral tool in what I do on a daily, editing on the go and going in. So you mentioned running 8K footage. Have you tried some of your maybe standard timelines that you use? And have you seen, like, comparing it to the what's it, the 3070, the 4070, the TI one that you have?
I show kind of like, because I do the same video render test. I recreated it as close as I could, frame for frame, for what I run in LumaFusion versus what I run on DaVinci. So I had to manually recreate the project, but I think I got it pretty close. Like, if there's like a 2-frame difference over the course of a minute-long project, I feel like that's okay to compare the output on different platforms. And so it's funny, I got the 4070 Ti in my aging workstation here, and my 1-minute project file takes almost spot on 16 seconds to render a 1 minute project. Hilariously, at the same quality, and we're talking like I'm going in there and managing bit rates, and we're going H.264 or H.265. LumaFusion on the Dimensity 9300 also completes that same project in 16 seconds. So my little Vivo X100 Pro, if you believe that Geekbench claims that their scores are comparable across platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I think that's true, but if you get a score of 2000 on an Android phone, that is supposed to be a similar level of compute power as 2000 on an Intel or an AMD or a MacBook. So the Dimensity 9300 in that Vivo X100 Pro is ever so slightly more powerful than the 12th generation Core i7U in my military grade
GTAC.
GTAC rugged laptop.
Yeah.
This idles at 10 watts and has a max TDP, just the CPU, at 30 watts.
Wow. Okay.
The maximum system power draw of a Vivo X100 Pro is about 12 watts. So
No.
it is more powerful at less than
power,
half the
yeah.
power draw. So this is the exciting thing that's coming down the pipe for X Elite. Is I haven't done anything that I would consider near qualified enough to deliver what I would call a review. I've got a first look and I've got some early benchmarks, and that's all just a starting point because this stuff is going to change very, very quickly as software updates and operating system updates. But if I plug my 45 watt power delivery warp charger into the X Elite, I can run that system full speed and the battery still charges. That means I have one of the most powerful mobile CPUs created in the history of laptops, and it has to be drawing less than 40 watts for it to be charging on top of the machine running full bore at 45 watts. That is incredible. The entire system is probably around 35 to 40 watts.
You're not even tapping it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is just the TDP of a 12th gen Core i7U series processor. Just the CPU in this thing, not the screens and the fans and the RAM and the storage and all the other stuff that goes into a computer. The entire system is probably near the total power draw of what we used to just have for a CPU.
Those are the things that you and I got excited about when we were down in San Diego with Qualcomm, when they were talking about all of these. They're talking total system TDP, not just talking about,
Now, that is totally boned to the conversation because that's not how we talk about tech products, and people haven't been able to compare those very easily. But I am super frustrated that there is a thread of conversation happening from the hardcore gaming benchmarkers right now who are going out of their way, I feel, to kind of misrepresent what this product resembles. So these are the guys that like review gaming handhelds and portables. They build gaming systems all into PC gaming. It's Intel or AMD, and of course you need to have like a 40 series GPU. And Qualcomm went out of their way. I mean, we were point blank with Qualcomm engineers saying, this is not a gaming laptop chip. It's not. We're not making that. That's not what we're starting with. They told us this was a thin and light MacBook Air competitor, daily computing on the go, but a premium experience and one of the most powerful CPUs that we can throw at that kind of daily work and entertainment kind of system. And it happens to be pretty good at content creation. It's not a gaming system, but it's still more powerful than the Iris graphics from 13th gen Intel Core i9s. It's still more powerful than Vega 8 from the 5000 series AMD chips.
Wow. Okay.
It's just slightly behind the first generation of Radeon integrated GPUs. So that ain't bad. It's just a generation behind. And I'm watching these channels and they're like, I mean, look, you're getting terrible frame rates, and like if you undervolt an AMD and you put it on this power limiting thing and you do all this extra stuff in the background, I mean, you can almost basically match the power and the performance per watt of X Elite. And you're like, no one does that. Don't, like, that's not how you use it.
That's not how you, yeah, no,
that's not what it is.
The purpose of this computer wasn't to go in and undervolt and over, like it is supposed to be something you step into that just makes it runs the work, and it
but
does
saying
it
things like, it doesn't make sense why anyone would buy this. It's got an underpowered GPU. And they're basically, again, if I were a car reviewer, it would be like me saying, I'm going to put on my hack YouTube reviewer persona here.
Persona.
We just got out of this Toyota briefing, and they said that the new Prius was designed to be fuel efficient and good for commuters, and that it wasn't built to tow heavy objects. So, like, the first thing we did was hook a boat up to the back of the Prius, and, like, it can't even tow a boat. I mean, like, how can you even justify the price of this Prius if you can't tow boats? You know what I'm saying? That's, man, it's what a fail, Toyota. No one should buy the Prius. Am I right, guys? Am I right?
Absolutely.
Like, it's not enough to have a nice car for daily commuting and fuel efficiency. It's just, where are all the boat towing? Where is it?
It's
okay,
it's
and
all
I'm
about
back.
that.
I'm back now.
Yeah, and see. No, look, it's so there's a big thing that we need to keep also address. The fact is that this is still in the early stages. This device is, even the review units that people were pushing out videos and so on, they probably had them maybe a week, maybe at the most
No.
days.
What's
if nothing
crazy
else.
is, like, I think the only, well, no, actually, Lenovo might have had a few out. They didn't seed many. Asus went hard, and they got their units out a week early. So reviewers have only had them, like you were saying, for a week. Microsoft didn't ship. They shipped review units with the first batch of pre-orders. So the pickings out there are real slim, and you've got a lot of people that are speculating about what these devices might do. And we're only just starting to join the conversation with actual data, which makes it disappointing when, like, a hardcore game reviewer is exactly the kind of data we need, but the presentation is the problem.
Yeah.
The presentation of, oh, it's an iGPU and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, sure. But this is better than the last, what, 5 years of Intel iGPUs, and it's better than the last, not the last year, but before then, the last previous 4 years behind that of AMD. So in their fourth major PC chip iteration, Qualcomm has surpassed the current era of CPU in x86, and they're a generation behind in GPU compute.
It's
Their
still
fourth main PC chip. That's not bad. And
yeah.
the performance per watt is kind of incredible. Like, this is besting some portable gaming consoles when we look at that CPU GPU split. So again, it's like the perspective totally feels like that audience bias confirmation. If I know that more people in my audience want me to say that AMD has the best chips for gamers, it's easy for me to completely move the goalposts around so that X Elite is a performance per watt loser. But that's not what this thing was designed to do. And the company went out of their way to say, you can play games on it, but it's not a gaming machine.
No, it was specifically said so. It's just that in general, you know, we expect a certain level of ability of installing games and using them. It's just not intended for that. You don't.
Well, and also, like, Asus didn't put it in an ROG, so sit down.
No, I'm with you.
So I just saw the time. We should probably start wrapping this up because you've got a bus and a flight to catch. So.
I have a bus leaving in literally 21 minutes, but I need to still finish putting things away. But I'll say this: it's exciting to see some of the options that we're seeing in the sense of AI functional options. But I think if nothing else, the X Elite for me has been something I've been waiting for years. And I cannot wait till I get my hands on my unit and then be able to experience that one. And I'm glad I was able to find one that had the 32, not the 16, because I think most Asus ones were sent out was 16s as their configuration. But the overall, the perspective and potential being that DaVinci does have some support, even if it is buggy, and if it does even remotely match my experiences on what I'm getting here with my Mac, it is game changing. It is going to be game changing in many ways. And I think that's what we need to focus on, what these devices are intended for and what their potentials are. And
to your point, I have to put it out there. If you're an Intel or an AMD fan, I want you to be Intel and AMD fans, but don't go into these comments and go out of your way to not acknowledge that your Lunar Lake and your AMD Strix Point would not exist if Apple hadn't gone ARM and if Qualcomm hadn't put pressure on Microsoft.
Yeah.
Intel and AMD would have had no incentive to improve the performance per watt of
Absolutely. Yeah, no,
x86
absolutely not.
if we didn't have ARM in the mix. And so I'm going to save this for future, but like we got to talk about MediaTek. Now the rumors are starting to spin up about MediaTek and NVIDIA partnerships. AMD might make an ARM play, and Framework just put out a press release saying they're going to do a RISC laptop. So
wow.
RISC-V is going to come to a consumer-facing system. I think it's consumer-facing. I don't think it's going to be like just a dev board. But this entire market, this is a sea change of options in competition for personal computing, the likes of which I don't think we've seen in decades. This level of competition, companies jumping into this space, trying to make their own bespoke products, and the chip foundry and fabrication scene is more exciting than I think it's been in the last like 15 years. So we've got a lot to continue following up on. And then once we're both back in California at the same time, I think you and I need to do just to sit down, and we'll do like another like co-stream just chatting about Asus versus Surface. Your machine costs $1,000 less than mine.
Exactly. We can definitely make a case and see does having the top spec version of a Surface over an Asus. But
I'm pretty confident saying that if those were your two choices, the $2,500 machine, I'm just going to say it now. I'm going to spoil that part of the video for people who watch our podcast. If you don't need 64 gigabytes of RAM, doesn't make any sense. If you do need 64 gigabytes of RAM, $1,000. That's a lot to spend on 32 extra gigs. I kind of feel my spec, my configuration makes very little sense for the vast majority of high performance computer users. I think you got the better deal. Well, between the two of us.
I'm gonna reserve the gloating till I have my unit, because right now these hands are.
I feel like the pre-gloating is totally deserved. I went overkill spec, and I love it, but I went overkill spec.
But with that being said, I do want to say thank you very much for everybody hanging out with us on this beautiful Friday on my side, Thursday on his side, podcast. And I think once we're back, we'll be able to kind of hang out with it, and we'll see. We'll give you guys a little bit of a heads up as well that maybe I think next week we may have a little bit of a conflicted schedule. So we're going to try to make it happen.
We're going to play next week by ear. No promises.
We'll let you guys know.
Yeah.
We'll definitely let you know. But be safe, stay safe. I'm going to be traveling for the next God knows how many hours. This is the only thing about traveling. It just takes forever. So
it'd be real nice if you had an X Elite system with great battery life for your travel.
But
anyway,
timing was not going to happen. I'll see you guys. Take care. Be safe and stay safe as usual. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye for now.